Now, have you been in situations where cue cards are not acceptable? Like giving a TED Talk, for instance. When you're giving a TED Talk, you're out there on the stage, you have no cue cards, you have no PowerPoint slides to fall back on. You have to be able to talk from memory. Now, or perhaps maybe you've forgotten your cue cards or your PowerPoint slides in your car. Now, before you sink to the bottom of your feet, understand that there are ways to remember a speech without notes or a PowerPoint slides. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. As a matter of fact, your speeches can sound more conversational and engaging when you engage the audience, if you're not relying on PowerPoint notes and slides because you're relying on your memory. You want to involve your audience and get feedback from them. So let's talk about how to improve your memory in public speaking. You want to start out by memorizing key points of your speech. Nobody wants to write out a full speech. That's time consuming, and that also means you'll have to memorize that speech in order to give it. Ain't nobody got time for that. If you're reading from a script, word for word, it will be harder for you to engage your audience and appear natural on stage. Use cue cards only to jog your memory if you have to. If you have to use cue cards, use bullet points written out in an outline form and practice that outline. Your outline should be topics that you want to cover during your speech. Take as much time as you need to. Practice your speech using your outline, but whatever you do, don't try to memorize anything word for word. Now, there's a program called the Journey Method. I'm not sure if you heard of it, but try using the Journey Method as a tool to help remember your speech. Now, this method was created by David Thomas, who is a memory whiz. What you want to do with the journey while using the journey method is you want to chunk your talk into a series of trigger words that will help you remember every bullet point that you've written on those note cards. Remember, I just said create an outline on your note cards and use bullet points in order to jog your memory. Now, this using the journey method, this should help your memory perhaps every 10 to 15 words. Think of a journey around a familiar setting. For example, your home. Place a different word at certain points in your house to trigger your memory of that section in your talk. Now, when I say different points in your home, you could have 3 bullet points on your cue card that you want to talk about. And I'm just using this as an example. So I'm thinking off the top of my head. So if it sounds crazy, just go with it with me. Let's say that you want to talk about, let me think. If you want to talk about, I'm just going to say, if you want to talk about something that you did last week or something that would be helpful to your audience, you might want to place something at your refrigerator. And then when your memory thinks of refrigerator and you're looking at that outline on your cue card, that should jog your memory. Hey, or you put refrigerator on your cue card, let's say, that should jog your memory that you want to talk about whatever that was that I said, something that happened to you last week. So you want to use different stations of your home to load and, use that as a cue to jog your memory that this is what I want to talk about. So by using the journey method of memory, you can quickly memorize up to 20 key words and easily give a speech without notes. Now, I hope I kind of described that well. Maybe it was kind of jumbled, but hopefully you got the gist of what I was trying to say. By using something in your home that's going to jog your memory of what you have written on your card. So therefore, you don't have to remember this word for word. And whatever you do, don't try to be perfect. It's okay if your speech is a little different each time that you give it. Being different will help make you sound more authentic and natural. Now, what you're trying to memorize are your key points and not the exact words you're looking at to say. You want to make a connection with your audience. Making a good connection with your audience can either make or break your speech. What you want to do is you want to speak from your heart. People want to see that you are a person who they can relate to. A great way to not have to depend on PowerPoint slides is to tell a story. People love stories. To engage your attendees, your presentation should be told from the perspective of someone that they can relate to, for instance, or a story they can relate to, for instance. The perspective you pick will be the good girl or good guy who attendees can root for as you overcome impediments on your journey to success. People always want to root for the good guy or the good girl. So start your story with the challenges that you faced. Talk about how you had to rise above the problem to heighten the drama of your story and pull your audience in. Then talk about how tragedy turned into triumph. The conclusion of your story should be the happy ending. Talk about overcoming the insurmountable obstacles that you had to overcome and how you celebrated your accomplishments. Like I said, if people can see themselves in that story, you've got your audience hooked. They are really into you and paying attention. And they can see you as a person, someone that they can relate to and say, hey, she's talking to me, or hey, that happened to me. So make sure that you are making eye contact with your audience. One of the most important things that you can do while on stage is make eye contact with your audience members. This will help them feel like you are talking directly to them and will establish more of a connection. Plus, it just looks more natural from the audience's point of view. When you look a person in the eye, you communicate confidence and belief in your point of view. One of the most powerful means of communicating confidence and conviction is sustained, focused eye contact. When your listeners see your eyes scanning their faces, they feel invited to engage with you, and that is what you want. They feel encouraged to signal to how they feel about what you're saying with nods. They might nodding their head up and down or frowning on something that you said or skeptical raising of the eyebrows. When you look a person in the eyes, you communicate confidence and belief in your point of view. One of the most powerful means of communicating confidence and conviction is sustained, focused eye contact. So as you can see, giving eye contact is very important and it helps you to not depend on your cue cards or your PowerPoint slides. Now, everyone, when they get up and speak in front of an audience, is nervous. So you're nervous. Now what? Even the professional speakers get nervous. They just know how to control their nerves way better than you. But that is something that can be learned. Admit it. You're nervous. It's okay. Did you know that 65% of public speakers have performance anxiety? Yeah, that's quite a few speakers. Like I said, even the professional speakers get nervous. Now, if you're in denial, that will just make the situation worse. So admit that you will most likely be nervous. The best way to handle stage fright is to know your stuff. Nothing stops stage fright dead in its tracks like being prepared. Know your content and know your speech. And most importantly, know your audience. If you're prepared and you know what you're talking about, you shouldn't be nervous. Understanding your topic enables you to speak more naturally and confidently. Now, use creative visualization to succeed during your speech. Now, I know what you're saying. Visualization. We're getting into this woo woo, wow wow, way out stuff. You can believe it or not, but visualization, reflection, meditation, whatever you want to call it, it works. Like Nike says, just do it. Visualize yourself giving a perfect presentation and speaking in public filled with humor, warmth, confidence, and intelligence. You have to train your brain to replace any negative memories with positive thoughts. It's a mindset thing. In order to succeed at something stressful, such as public speaking, you have to give your brain something else to think about. So visualize yourself doing it right. Visualize yourself doing your presentation, including all of the things that may go wrong and can go wrong, like your mind going blank, for instance, or people looking bored. There's nothing worse than looking out in your audience and people are bored looking and they're looking down at their phones. Well, you need to visualize all that and you need to have a system together where you're going to handle that. Now you have to have a strategy, just like I said, a strategy, not a system, a strategy worked out for that situation and putting your strategies into action and how to cope with that situation. Visualize the audience giving you the biggest standing ovation after your speech and wanting to meet and talk with you after your speech. That will work to reduce your fears in two ways. Number one, you'll have strategies in place to use if things do go wrong. And number two, in your mind, you will have rehearsed coping effectively with things going wrong. So just don't visualize success, visualize the steps needed to achieve that success. Remove any safety nets that you might have. Make a decision to deliver your speech without notes, and it will make a huge difference with your mindset and performance. Remember, I just talked about your mindset a few minutes ago? Instead of memorizing your notes, think about a practical conversation like an engaging conversation, just like I'm having here with you. When you're engaged in an everyday conversation and you forget a word, you just casually correct yourself, right? If you have memorized your speech and you forget a word or two, that could be devastating. Your mind will most likely go blank and you'll feel like a deer caught in the headlights, praying for somebody, anybody, to come and save you. And if you're looking down at your notes to read, your speech, it's probably it's a possibility, I mean, that you'll lose your audience attention. So become familiar with your speech by remembering key points and do not try to memorize your speech word for word. Now let's just recap what I talked about. I talked about start out by memorizing key points in your speech. I also talked about make a connection with your audience by telling a story. And also, I said make eye contact with your audience because your audience wants to feel like you're talking to them. Now, you're nervous. So what? Now what? I mean, everyone is nervous. Like I said, even the professional speakers, they get nervous too. Use creative visualization during your speech. You know, the woo woo stuff I talked about, the meditation, just visualize yourself giving a knockout standing ovation speech and remove the safety net of not using any cue cards and PowerPoints.